All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. It is a one of the few Wednesday shows that we do. So bringing that Wednesday, that hump day energy to you guys. A little bit drizzly here in Seattle, but hey, it's Seattle. That's what we expect. We're hoping for the sun right around the corner. End of May, we should start to get a good bit of sun coming up. And I'm telling you guys, Seattle is literally the best place on earth during the sun or during the summer. During the winter, you might want to stay somewhere else, but during the summer, it's where it's at. Today's going to be a good day, though, because we have Chris Prefontaine with us. This is a repeat guest. I love having people back, and Chris is somebody who we really have not even scratched the surface of his wisdom. He is from Smart Real Estate Coach. He also hosts the podcast, Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. They are ranked the top 0.5% globally, so really good podcast out there. A lot of experience in real estate, so I'm super excited to jump into this. Chris, thanks for hopping on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Gabe. I look forward to diving in here, and hopefully we can shed some nuggets, right?
There you go. I told you before we got on here, we always like to start with stories and hear how people got to where they are. So why don't you take us to the beginning of your story in real estate and just tell us, how'd you get here?
Yeah, I think we can peel back any parts of it, but I grew up in a family company. It was actually not real estate. It was actually a welding supply business. So quite different. Yeah, and industrial gases. But my dad would build his own brick and mortar buildings throughout, in my case, throughout New England. And then I was sweeping floors all the way up to general manager at one point, but I'd watch him build the real estate. And then he explained to me when I was young, I'll never forget, I was confused because he said, yeah, I build these and then I lease them back to the company. And I'm like, well, it's just you. Why? So I didn't get it. And then I finally understood that. And then he hung out with people that did like land flips and things on the side of their main businesses, right? Never full time. So I was exposed to that. I think that was the impetus to get everything going. I read way back in the 80s, I read the Trump book before Trump was an issue in politics. It's just a book, right? So don't take that the wrong way. It's just the 80s.
What was that book? I can't remember the title of that.
Art of the Deal.
Yeah, Art of the Deal. There you go.
I literally remember I was in an apartment. We got married when we were 20. I was in an apartment reading that book in my 20s. I've always had an itch for it. I went to school for business, but I had an itch for real estate always. And that's what started it.
Yeah, makes sense. So you didn't get the itch to take over your dad's welding company?
It's funny because it was, I remember like it was yesterday, it was 1990, and he said, look, I have some people that are interested in the business unless you want to kind of stay doing it. And I didn't want to impede on his plans, right? Number one. And number two, I had just tinkered with some building. I had a partner in the field and I'd find the land. And I was really getting the itch then because I saw the potential. So I said, no, do your thing. So he sold the company, kept me on as general manager, and then fired me after about a month. My kids were 1 and 2. And they said, here's a month severance. Good luck. Like that was it. And so I was full-time real estate. So I was nervous and elated at the same time. I remember driving home going, cool, not cool. I didn't know what to do, but it was good.
That's one of those kind of silver lining experiences in life because, you probably didn't want it at the time. You never want something that is uncertain and that you just don't know what's going to happen. But, looking back, I'm sure you can think like, I'm so glad that happened because it forced me full-time to do what I really wanted to do, which was real estate.
Yeah.
Awesome. So once you got that shove, you got full-time into real estate. What has been your trajectory since then? What do you guys focus on?
Yeah. So I'll fast forward through that because that's 33 years of putting everybody to sleep. We built a bunch of homes during that time period. I think upwards of 100 homes or so. And then in 95, I bought a Realty Executives franchise. So I stuck my broker hat on. I never did that. And then I sold that to Coldwell Banker in 2000. That was a great experience. And then that led up to the 2008 crash. So I was kind of working on my own properties, coaching people throughout the United States and Canada. That wasn't investors, though, at the time. Like now, it was realtors. But that crash really was the impetus to do sort of the fulcrum point to what we're doing now, because I came out of the crash, took 4 years mentally to get out of it. I was like, what did I do? I blamed it on myself. So once I got out of my own way, got my head out of the sand in 2012, I said, all right, if we're going to do this again, how are we going to do it so that doesn't happen again? And the answer was, because I had no credit, no cash, the answer was, okay, don't use banks. Don't sign personally on that. Don't pledge your credit. Don't use gobs of money of your own. So that was the impetus to get going what we got going here with Smart Real Estate Coach, where we do, when I say we, it's a family company where we help investors all over North America, mostly US, do deals in the trenches, not just here's a course, but actually do the deal, talk to the buyers, talk to the sellers. The other piece that was important coming out of that 2008 debacle was not to be back on the treadmill of transactional real estate. And transactional meaning, you build a house or you flip a house or you wholesale, you get that one check. Great money, scale a business if you can get it big enough. But every January, you're like, I got to get back on the treadmill and do that again. So we trademarked the 3 payday system to kind of band-aid that piece. And so all that was, again, because of the '08 garbage that went on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every time, what's that phrase, the Chinese phrase? It's like, the symbol for crisis is the same as the symbol for opportunity or something like that.
It's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, anytime you go through something like the 2008 crash in your life, it hurts, but there is always opportunity in there, especially from the lessons learned, which it sounds like you got a lot of them. You mentioned briefly the 3 payday system. Go over that. It sounds like this was a lesson that you kind of took from your experience in 2008, and you developed this system out of it. Tell us briefly what that is.
Yeah, so it was the spark plug there was, let's not just get paid on one deal and have to go do another deal, right? So in real estate, it's pretty common. So what we did is we exit all our deals, at least initially, through a rent-to-own program that we've really got dialed in, I think better than anyone in the industry, because we cash out like 90 to 98% of these buyers. That's really high in that niche. And so it's payday one, they come in with a down payment. They're true buyers. They're not renters that want to be someday a buyer. They're true buyers that need some time for financing. So payday one is their down payment. You keep that. Payday two is the spread between what we're paying the bank or the underlying property owner if they did owner financing, and what we're collecting from that tenant buyer while they're getting mortgage ready. There's a delta there. And then payday three is all of the principal pay down that you accumulated throughout that deal. That's the strong piece. And then, of course, any markup you did. But here's the punchline, Gabe. The 3 paydays right now, if you look at the entire community, and then I'll tell you our family company, they range from like a low of 45 grand in low end areas up to 350 grand was our most recent record. So that's pretty significant. And so when someone does, let's say 6 deals, to give us some context to the transactional piece, they launch the payday one, sure. They then put in place a payday two that keeps going monthly, and then they put in place a long-term cash out. That's pretty neat. So every deal, you stop putting that on a spreadsheet, you have variety, you have money's coming in at different times. That gives someone the ability to get off the treadmill if they want, or of course scale it. A lot different than transactional where you got to start over.
Okay, I'm gonna walk this back just a little bit,
Yeah.
because I hear what you're saying, but I feel like some of the holes are missing from people listening. So you guys market for single family houses, and you buy them with, it sounds like, conventional lending, and then you are either conventional lending, seller financing, or I'm sure some of them are cash as well, and then you sell them or you sell them seller financing to the new buyer.
Okay, a couple tweaks
Okay.
in there, so we can. This is good. So we buy everything because of what I explained earlier with the crash. We buy everything either owner financing, lease purchase, or subject to existing financing. So we're never signing personally or coming up with all cash or signing on bank loans, right?
Okay.
And then we exit, at least initially, on a rent-to-own basis with the client that needs time to get financing. A great example is coming out of COVID. You have record numbers. I lost track of what they were, but I read Dell's book recently, and he just talked about the enormous amounts of people leaving corporate, going into their own business. They don't realize they can't get financing right away, right? They need 2 years of what the banks call seasoning. Those are great buyers. I have cash, my credit's good, I just need time. That's who we like catering to. And so I say initially only because if we have a deal we bought with no kind of term ticking, if you will, like long-term owner financing, I can owner finance the buyer too after they prove themselves in a rent own. They don't have to go to a bank necessarily. So that's why I said initially rent own. That make more sense, or does it still hold there?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So subject to, I've never done one. We buy mostly commercial, and when we did look for single family, I always went away from deals that had debt on them, because it was my understanding that most of the mortgage, the mortgage legalese that you sign, they have a clause in there that'll say, due on
sale.
Due on sale.
Yeah.
Is that still the case, or is the subject to work for a lot of the deals out there?
No, subject to works well. Let me address that and the due on sale. Very most popular question we get. So first of all, why is subject to popular right now in this market? Because it depends what market you're in, what pond we fish in, right? The subject to is super popular right now because you have people unloading properties that might have 2 or 3 different properties they want to unload, or they lost a job, or whatever the reason. but they're on interest rates that are like in the 2s, 3s, and 4s. Like we just did a deal in Florida in Boca at 2.6%. The kids were
like free
current. They
money.
weren't in front. Yeah, it's crazy. And they weren't in financial distress. They just wanted to leave the state at a certain date.
Yeah.
And the conventional market didn't give it to them. So that's why it's great right now. And I could go on and on. Our owner financing deals, we do 0% on a lot of them, like 98% of them, 0% with the owners. So you can
You
buy
mean
a home right
0%
now,
down?
0% down and 0% interest, monthly principal only payments.
Oh, interesting.
So you
Okay.
can buy a house in summary from 0 to 5% in a market
Yeah.
where they're getting 7s. Now the due on sale clause. So the due on sale clause is not a legal issue; it's a contractual issue between the bank and the seller, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically, unlike owner financing, where we talk to free and clear owners and they're not in financial distress, typically a sub two is someone that either needs to go at a certain date and can't get there quick enough, or they're in financial trouble, which is usually the case. What we do, and this is not legal advice, I'm far from an attorney, but what we've been advised to do is we put them in trusts and then we assign the beneficial interest instead of transferring the property, because one of the reasons is the Garment St. Germain Act in the 80s allows owners to transfer property like that in trust for family planning reasons. And there's an attorney coming on. This is timely because there's an attorney coming on our mastermind this week in Florida, Charles. Charles got challenged by a bank and won doing it this way. So we specifically are having him come on our mastermind because that's a big, big win for the community and for him to know that what he's advising us to do works incredibly well. And he just won literally after years of teaching.
Yeah. No, that shows that it, when you put it to test in court, and it holds up, then that's big. Yeah. But it would also, and the reason I mentioned that is it does make sense for a bank to want to, sell the property and get it off their books if it's a low interest rate at like 2%, because they can turn around and take that money and just put it into any loan right now, and definitely exceed that. So
that's what everyone was concerned about, to your point. Yeah, it's a good point, Gabe. So you do it the right way with the right attorney that does thousands of these, not a real estate attorney that's never done them. And you go, hey, do you want to do this? They're not going to want to do it. You got to find someone like we did. We have many of them now that know how and want to do these things properly, and then you'll be in great hands. That's the key.
Yep, makes sense. Cool. I love the strategy. So what are you guys doing for this next, 2 to 3 years? Like, what's your goal?
Yeah, our goal, especially after having done this so long, I mean, I'm in my 33rd year, but for creative, it's been since 2012, right? So it's 12 years of just creative real estate. We are focusing on two niches out of our 4 or 5 that we can fish in. One is the free and clear owner. Most of them are not on the market, so we mail and call. We don't, but our virtual assistants do, because they will typically be fine with waiting and fine with not a big down payment if they get their price. That's all they care about. And they can take it over time. And many of them want it over time, Gabe. We bought our building. I just recently sold it. But we bought our building in 2018 from a gentleman, a mixed use, busy highway area where we put our companies, and he wanted this structure for tax and estate planning reasons. You just have to solve for what they want, right?
Yeah.
So that's one niche, free and clear. I love working with them, and they're not in a rush. And then secondly is the complete opposite end, which is the sub 2 properties that we talked about earlier. But we can fish for those. We can say, give me all the loans or all the homes that were bought between, say, 19 and 22, right? 2019 and 22, with little equity. And then those people, if they have any little wiggle room, they're in trouble. So we can help them too. You're always just solving problems or helping people accomplish a goal. That's all you're doing here. And you're doing that without ever signing personally on a loan.
Got it. That makes sense. 2019 to 2022, because that's when the interest rates were so low. So you guys are going into whatever property radar, prop stream, whatever. You're putting this criteria in the filter for your area. Correct. You're doing 2019, 2022.
As an example.
Balance. Yeah, as an example. And then are you doing, how much are you focusing on the equity that they have in the property? Usually it's like 20% or 30%. Do you guys care if it's like a 90 or if they only have like 5% equity in the property, or does it matter?
Yeah, I like that. I do like those because, again, you're probably picking people that they're not able to sell in the open market, because if they do, they're either going to get negotiated down or have to pay a commission, right? And then that puts them kind of out of play. And that's number one. Number two, if you think about it, you can search for any criteria. It's funny. I have associates all over the country, and I'll go, hey, try that, and they'll get a different result in the exact
Yeah.
same state. So they'll just try another criteria. There's a student in New Hampshire that does these deals and has sub two deals with huge equity. So he'll
Mm.
do sub two with an owner financing component. That's pretty cool
Huh.
because, and that's an owner usually that wants to get rid of that mortgage for a time being, you know?
Yeah. So it sounds like you're doing this on the commercial side too. You mentioned a mixed use retail that you've done. Was it seller financed or was it sub
Yeah.
two?
Yeah, I was seller financing. He was free and clear. He literally said to me, Chris, I want owner financing. I have these realtors coming to me with cash offers. I don't want it. Like, you just have to cater to what they want. It's crazy. The market didn't know how to do it. So
Yeah.
he was free and clear. We bought it for 550. Now we broke the rule of money down, Gabe, because it was for our offices.
Mm.
So what I did is I said to him zero interest and zero down. And he said, come on, Chris. This guy was like one of the largest landowners in the area. It was no newbie. So what we did was, long story short, we put around, I think it was like 30 grand down. That broke every rule we do. But again, there was a reason to do it. Secondly, we staged or scheduled every August of small 5 grand principal.
Mm.
Then we did 18 months. First 18 months of the loan was principal only, no interest. That's how I got
Okay.
my way. Then we
Yeah.
took the balance and amortized it for him at 5.2. At the time, that was a good rate. Then it became a really good rate when rates went down.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So what is your, you deal a lot in the on the interest rates. I mean, I'm sure you're focused on those because if they go up, then those lower interest rates become more appealing. What do you see for the next couple of years in terms of interest rates moving up, down? What's your crystal ball say?
Yeah, I'm chuckling because I like the billionaires don't know, right? So people who predict this kill me. But my opinion
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
on your show is you got an election coming, right? So I don't think there's going to be much movement either way. Just my personal opinion. I do think, though, coming out of that, the truth will be told what's going to happen. But here's the thing: if you study creative
Mm.
and you get comfortable with that skill set, that's a skill set you have for life, and that's a skill set that we all know is one constant in real estate. It keeps changing. It's not going to stop doing that. So once you know creative, you know how to pivot. And I alluded to earlier what pond to fish in to do deals. It doesn't change. You just do it differently. So, for example, during COVID, right when the panic hit, we could grab any property we wanted, even if it was a FISBA, right? They were in a panic. They needed a guide. Our property went through the roof. 2, 3 months later, when everything was selling like hotcakes, was the for sale by owner the person to talk to? No, they were selling, right? So you'd talk to expires or off market. So that's what I mean by you just have to pivot and see what pond to fish in. That's all, and get really good at that. So that's where we're going versus trying to worry about rates, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've the longer I've done real estate, the more and the more strategies I start to implement, I realize, you can get most deals done if you have the right tool in your toolbox to address that deal.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned a few times that a lot of sellers, they just want a price. They have a price in their mind, and that is the only thing that matters. But you can change terms to hit that price and
Right.
have it make sense for both people, even if the price might be above market. Maybe it's a little bit above market, and they just are stuck on that. But if you do principal only, with
It
no
eats it
money
up.
down, yeah, exactly, and do a long payoff period, that makes it worth it.
Yeah, and I can give them a quick, your listeners a quick takeaway. Just use like 3 or 4 criteria. I usually start with three, but if a seller says I want money down, I'll say, okay, well, what's more important, money down or price or term? I'll give like three things. What's the most important to you? Well, price. Okay, great. I can't give you all three. That wouldn't be fair. And then you right away coming across as I'm just trying to be fair with you here. Win-win, right? So that
Yeah,
works every time. You get them to tell you what their goals are.
nice. I like it. All right, that wraps up the first section here. It's time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Fire away.
Let's do it. Starts with education, could be any form, could be books, movies, YouTube shows, whatever. Just give me two recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
The Ed Milet podcast, I still advocate big time. And then for real estate, without going biased to us, I will tell you that I like going to YouTube and starting with, because you can get lost, and starting with one of the niches that you and I just talked about and stay in that lane and just keep digging, digging, digging versus giving one program.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that podcast is Smart Real Estate Coach Podcast.
Yep.
Switching on Spotify or Pandora. I'm sure it's on all of them.
Yep.
Once you get on
Yep.
one, you're on all of them. All right, next question is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Chris who was just working, getting fired from his job way back in the
Yeah.
day, 1990 something. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
This would be good for anyone in any biz, actually. It just as you asked that. One is pick a industry, but because it's real estate, I'll say pick a niche. And then two, it gets harder as you go here. Three steps. Two, find someone that's already done what you've done, but also that you can relate to value wise, because there's pretty successful people that have screwed up every part of their life, right? So number two, pick someone that you can relate to in every way. Number three, put the blinders on for 3 to 7 years, especially if it was my younger self, I'd say 7. I had Brian Tracy on my show when he was 82 years old, and he said 3 is not enough, Chris. I've been there. You need 7 years to get through a cycle of business skill set. So those are the 3 pieces of advice. Pick an industry or a niche, pick someone in it who's where you want to be, and then follow that with blinders on, because the shiny object syndrome won't kick in if you do that.
I really like that. And you're the first person to kind of put it that way. But I like the framework. Choose a focus, choose an industry or a business or whatever. Just choose one direction that you're going. Find somebody who's done that to replicate them, and then stick with it for at least 7 years. That I feel like that is the formula for success.
Step 3 is the
Um,
toughest, right?
yeah.
It is.
Yeah, the 7 years is the hardest part, but there's going to be so many ups and downs, times when you want to quit, but if you just keep going, eventually you're going to make it through.
100%.
All right, next question is about the US. It is a big place, a lot of opportunity. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Because we don't go geographic, I'm gonna be biased and say, just because of what I see my students doing, Texas, the whole Texas core
Mm,
is enormous. But again, I don't geographically need to do that in creative. But yes, if I was picking one, that would be where I picked, from what I've heard.
yeah, makes sense. Texas is huge, and there's a lot of good metros there. All right, next question is about finding deals. It all starts with getting in contact with the seller and penning up that purchase agreement. So, what is your favorite way to generate leads and find new deals?
The simple piece for anyone new would be, we use My Plus, right? We've customized it, but My Plus Leads feeds us daily the for sale by owners, the expireds, the for rent by owners, and that's someone's base before you start getting in more advanced.
Got it. What is my plus a paper lead?
Yep, not per lead, per month. So
Oh,
your
okay.
area might be flooded, your area might be sparse 1 month, but you're getting all 3 or 4 of those sources. And for most people, because of the profitability of our deals, that's plenty. They do like a 50-mile radius of wherever you plug in. And again, usually plenty around you.
Cool. And that's myplusleads.com.
Yep. Yep. It's
Cool.
on our resource page, our customized version, sort of our white labeled version.
There you go. All right. Next question is about lessons learned. Not every deal that we get into goes the way that we expect it to. A lot of times a wrench is thrown into the mix and we get to learn a lesson. So, what was a deal that went a little bit sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
It was actually a student deal, but it's ours because we participate, we rev share. It was accepting an incorrect buyer. Remember I said earlier there's a correct buyer for rent own and there's an incorrect buyer. Well, he selected an incorrect buyer against our better judgment, but we're partners, so we should have known to just stop it in its tracks, right? And they took him for a ride for about a year and a half, in $1 million home, $1 million
Oh,
home. However, the lesson there was many, because we stepped in. One of our values is all transactions with the highest integrity. And we knew if he stepped away, which he was about to, people were going to get hurt, seller, investors, a lot of people. So we stepped in with the right attorney is the biggest lesson.
mm,
And almost anything can be unwound or worked on. It's just like the sub 2 thing, if they've done it. So we
mm.
found a really good local attorney. This deal was in Maryland, and we turned that around, got the squatter out, turned that around in about 6 months, I think it was 6 or 7. And that then became our record 3 payday deal of over 350 grand by doing the
Nice.
right thing, not
Yeah,
knowing where it was going to head.
that's great. Yeah, having the right attorney who's been there, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Having the right team in place. That is a bummer that, I don't know, what Maryland laws are like, but it sounds like they're kind of similar to Seattle here.
So many
If you get
now.
if you get a if you get a squatter, then you're kind of screwed.
And most of them know
So
what they're doing.
yeah, yeah, they know the system. They know that they can just stay there. I actually read. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I read a story. I think it was in the New York Times, about a guy who just basically he's squatted in somebody's house. I think it was for over 2 years, before they actually got him kicked out. And that just blows my mind that you can just go to a place, stay there, and there's no legal
I don't know how they do it
repercussions.
mentally either, Gabe. Yeah, I quick story. We had one that was literally a professional, like literally knew the laws, knew when to file bankruptcy, even though the court would kick it back out, and knew what every single step would buy. And that also went about 2 years.
Jeez, that is crazy. But it's good you guys had a better story to your to the end there, because you guys figured it out. You got the right team in place and you were able to move it.
Absolutely.
All right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. It's a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
Yeah, a couple of things. I want to give a free book, as I'd like to do on your show, and it's not a hey, it's free and then pay for shipping. We ship it for free. So just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/Gabe, and you'll get that book for free, and we'll throw some goodies in there. But it's the bestseller, real estate on your terms, and then you can take what you expected there. You'll get A through Z. We don't hold back, so you literally get lead gen to closing the deal to students around the country, so you see that it's not just one area. And then if you want to go through the free class, it's 55 minutes or so. If you can deal with listening to me for that long, you won't be with anyone else. It's a replay. So you do it at your own time. And that's just smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class.
Perfect. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to get that book or get involved with the course, just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description. In there, you can find the links. All right, Chris, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Thank you. Good to hang out again, Gabe.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. If you guys want to support the show, just give us a like, subscribe, share. Other than that, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic week. If it's a Wednesday, if it's a Thursday, whatever it is, I hope you rock it. As always, keep rocking real estate, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.